everyone. I'm Miata and I'm super excited to welcome you to this edition of the Ignition Hour, where we bring to you great entrepreneurs in an effort of helping you be ignited by their journeys and experiences. This game changer that is the Ignition Hour is brought to you by Craving for Development in collaboration with the 50/50 Group and ACAP, University of Sierra Leone, and is powered by Mitchcom, an internet provider that makes sure we have high-speed internet at the Ignition Hour series. That being said, I would like to invite all of us to project ourselves and imagine an Africa where curiosity, engagement, and grit are the driving forces of our youth. At the Ignition Hour, we are on a mission to make that happen. And we are just getting started. Because our countries need great innovators and entrepreneurs who are ready to do what it takes to challenge the status quo. Another projection that I think is worth doing is one where African women are fully empowered, where they have their rightful places in society and on the decision-making platforms, where the girl child is protected, is equipped with the necessary skills, and where men stand for women and are even the biggest feminists. And where women also express the fullest potential that they have. So that being said, I would like to introduce the topic of today, which is such a great topic. It's the she factor, a recipe for success. And the occasion warranties it, because we all know that March is our month. We need to celebrate ourselves. But also we need to know that we are as strong as our women are as a society. We are also as rooted and rounded as our mothers, sisters, and wives are. So those are all reasons for us to talk about the woman and to celebrate her. So among us today, we are very proud to have great role models, mainly Madam Miata Ogene, who is the founder and manager of Carmel and Butcher and of Imatrix 101. And Madam, are you intimidating me? Oh God. Oh, yes. And Ajara Marie Boma, okay, who is the founder and the creative director of Women Mean Business. So we are going to listen and get inspired by their great biographies and come back on stage.
Ajara Mariboma is a professional business mogul and marketing executive with over 16 years of experience specializing in diaspora engagement and investment in Africa, with a critical focus on women in business in Africa. With a master's in clinical social work from Smith College School of Social Work and a plethora of career experience in social service delivery, academic and program development, Ajara relocated to Africa after working in the United States. Ajara moved to Sierra Leone with the passion to grow and rebuild Sierra Leone by developing capacity and mentoring youth, women, and girls. Her academic and career background has strategically positioned her to gain a wealth of experience in the areas of community and youth development, event management, public relations, digital media communications, marketing, and stakeholder engagement in Sierra Leone and abroad. She has curated and developed corporate and business events for clients for the past 10 years under her first company, Royalty Concepts. In 2013, she launched her community platform for bringing African women businesses together, named Women Mean Business. Women Mean Business is a boutique strategic communications agency that seeks to empower African female entrepreneurs and individuals, develop their brands and businesses so that they can position themselves for opportunities in their local and international markets. Women Mean Business cultivates, inspires, and empowers African female entrepreneurs and serves as a vehicle for collaboration, mentoring, and networking, creating safe spaces for female entrepreneurs and young leaders to follow their dreams and turn their passions into profit. She was recognized as one of the 50 most influential Sierra Leonean women. Ajara has a passion for the use of technology to solve societal problems and create jobs for women and youth. She is also playing an integral role in the Big Sister Empowerment Show. She enjoys traveling, spending time with family and friends, and raising her beautiful and vibrant 5-year-old daughter. Ladies and gentlemen, Ajara Marie Boma. Miata Efe Ogene is a Bachelor of Arts holder in English Language and Sociology at Furubay College, University of Sierra Leone. Miata is currently the CEO of Imatrix 101 Group. She designed, executed, and project managed the setup of Elixir Marketing and Media, a subsidiary, and thereafter oversaw the management of the group and its unit companies. An accomplished administrator, she has grown Imatrix 101 Group profitably, established a shipping arm in addition to the CNF aspect of the company, built strategic partnerships with both local and international organizations, which have resulted in extensive growth and increased the share value of the group as a whole over the last 8 years. Previously, she worked for several blue chip companies, including British Airways, Honeywell, and MoneyGram International in Nigeria for over 10 years. She has served in various management capacities, such as brand manager, marketing executive for Nigeria, Liberia, Ghana, and Sierra Leone, and gained a wealth of experience coupled with an excellent track record of delivering success whilst doing business in diverse and often challenging markets. Miata recently set up Carmel and Butcher in 2013 with a focus on various services, real estate, immigration service, and an online media talk show and online magazine. Miata serves on the board of Imatrix 101, Carmel and Butcher, Elixir Marketing and Media, and also as chairman of the board of Wilberforce Municipal Junior Secondary School. Ladies and gentlemen, Miata Efe Ogene.
Thank you so much. So I can guarantee you that we are in very good hands, very able ones, and also very inspired and I'm sure activists for the cause of women. So without any delay, I just want us to go into this discussion. So there is, first of all, a question that I have that is about, how women are made. So is there anything about how God has made us that prepare us as women to be people who nurture, who love, who care, and who are patient?
So it's on.
I think it's good.
Yeah. In my opinion, I feel that I wouldn't want to deviate from what the Bible says, what women should be. And I think that we are who we are in terms of the fact that we are soft in many ways. We've been given breasts to suckle, which means that, there's a certain empathy and meekness that go with that. So we're nurturers naturally. We are providers as well, in the fact that in the home, we make sure the home is held together. So I wouldn't move away from that conventional, school of thought that says, yes, God made women to be the weaker sex. Should I say weaker sex, or should I say the sex that nurtures? Yeah, and I think that in that, as it is, that plays into the fact that in a workplace environment, those attributes can be used to I could use the word manipulate and get your way through a lot of, difficult spots. The fact that you are known as the softer and so-called weaker sex, you could also use that to your advantage because you could pretend as though you're weak when you're not, so that they never see you coming, so to speak. So I think that, for me, I feel that yes, God indeed gave us those attributes and those physical, physical makeup that do make us, seem a lot softer and a lot weaker.
I'm so happy that you featured it as a strategy instead just like a weakness. So we can call it like the softer or sweeter in terms of how you deal with people, the sweeter sex instead of the weaker. Okay, so what do you want to add?
Yes, I think I'll add a little bit to what Miata said. Unfortunately, I don't think we are the weaker sex. Going back to what the Bible says, when God made woman, man was asleep. So God did not want the man to know the strength and the power of the woman. So, exactly. And if you look at the home, woman, we carry, going back to the Bible, when you think about the virtuous woman, the Proverbs 31 woman, she is the caretaker of everything. If it wasn't for the mother, the caregiver, then how would the house be able to be sustainable? So I think, when you go back, like Miata said, we have to look at where we come from, who our father is, and how we were made up. So I do think we have certain characteristics that we can partner with our male counterparts to make sure that we both succeed in whatever we're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So that being kind and soft and nurturing, that would also mean that we don't have to be bold and risk takers, especially in our professional lives.
Oh, definitely. I for one, I feel that through my career, I've learned to be different people. I think that as women, we wear different hats for different purposes. I mean, so you're working with your peers, you behave differently. You're working with subordinates, you behave differently. You work with your superiors, you behave differently. So I think a woman is a plethora of different things. It doesn't necessarily mean that because you tend to be timid in one setting, that defines you. I mean, I feel that in your home, as a wife, I'm of the old school. You are meant to be submissive. And I feel that from learnings as well, from being married, because I am divorced, but from being married, I think those are some of the things that I would probably like to do differently. So the fact that my career started soaring at a very young age, and the fact that my husband and us, we got married at a very, tender age, and there was nobody in terms of mentors, which I think that's another thing that's very important for young men and women coming up. It's very good for you to get mentors. And in talking about mentors as well, I think that mentors within your society that are within your demographic, as opposed to having mentors. It's nice, yes, to look to the Oprah Winfrey's and the Michelle Obamas of this world, but I feel that having a mentor that's very close, to your own setting helps as well, because that speaks it speaks volumes in terms of how you can actually address a lot of things. And because my husband and I didn't necessarily have that, I made those mistakes that I would say to my daughter now, don't make those same mistakes. Yes, be submissive. Yes, be a hard worker, excel in your career. But when you come home, you take that hat off. You put the other hat on. So I think that, a woman is a very dynamic individual that, can be different things at different times for different purposes.
And that is like wisdom,
Oh, yes.
And it comes with age, because as you say, it's because it was a tender age, no mentors and everything. And that's also, I think, a balance we need to do between those feminist values of pursuing a career and stuff like that, and then having, aspiring to build a family and then sustain it. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. So can we have that type of boldness and risk-taking for women in the professional setting?
Yes, I definitely think when you look at the society that we live in, we as women, we're emotional beings. So we do wear many hats, we do carry many emotions, and we're in tune with our emotions, where it's different from men. In our society, men are taught to be strong, to be bold, and not to show their weakness. Whereas for us, we're able to manage both of our weaknesses and our strengths. And as well, as women, I think we have alpha women. We have women who wear the pants in their homes, who don't necessarily know how to be submissive or know how to come down to a weaker level just because that's maybe how they were raised, based on culture or whatever the case may be. So, for me, I think I have a mix of the two. I was born and raised in the West, and I grew up in Africa as well. So I have a bit of, the cultural aspect of what it means to be a child of Africa diaspora as well as an American. So I think, we are who we are based on our environments, based on our upbringings, and based on our experiences.
Mm-hmm. And I do think the problem also comes from the fact of considering that as being weak. Mm-hmm. Like being nurturing, being patient, and being submissive is being weak, because we have been called the weaker sex already. So when we relate to that, we are like, why would I be weak by being X, Y, Z? Okay, so that's something I think that shed light on how women should balance those two lives, which is great. So there is also something that people really believe about women. And it's like women cannot be good leaders because when they lead you, they either are bossy or they are snobby. But there is always something that they bring to the leadership. It's something that is ingrained in people's consciousness. So how do you think we should go about that belief?
It's relative, I would say. So most of my bosses have been women, and I think because of that as well, that's helped me again create that mentorship. I mean, one of my bosses, she's doing so well in Nigeria and in Africa as a whole, and that's something really to look up to. But I remember working with her as well. I was terrified of her because she was so strong. And in our setting as well, despite the fact that she worked in marketing, which marketing then had mostly women, because it was deemed to be the fluffy career path. But then she also had to work with a lot of executives because of her role, and most of these executives within who were her peers or her superiors were mostly men. And I would like to think that made her strong and tough. And because of that, she could come across as very intimidating. I mean, working with Carmen and Butchers, well, I've worked with quite a few young ladies, and I do know that I can be very hard. But then I also feel that there has to be a balance. It's also about, the carrot and the stick. I've worked with men as well. I mean, with iMatrix, because it's logistic, majority of people I work with are men. I really don't know how they feel about reporting to a female, but I do know that even with them, I am very hard, and I think that I don't regret the fact that growing up in my career, I had a boss that could be probably termed as bitchy, because I feel that she was also trying to help us grow as well, and unfortunately, the society in which we are, because most of the careers that we work with or work within are male-dominated. Unfortunately, you can't appear sometimes to be very timid, because then you would be taken advantage of. So yes, I'll go back to what I said earlier about the fact that you can use that and manipulate that to your advantage within certain scenarios. But I think that most of the time, you have to be strong, because there's also sexual harassment and the fact that in my career, I've had the problem that I smile too much, I get taken for granted, I get taken advantage of. I have had instances where I've left a job because the CEO felt that he could call me into his office, whatever, just to talk trash. So if women have to go through that, I think it builds you into becoming the kind of person. I think it's for everyone as well. And like I did say, it is relative. Someone else working with me would probably say, no, I don't find her bitchy, I don't find her hard. But then it depends on how tough their skin is, and so I think there's just several factors that play into that.
But also how biased they are, because maybe if it was a man who was behaving the same way, then the guy is just doing a great job. But if it's a woman, then we just label her.
Yeah, I think, to add to what Miata said, I think sometimes our society stereotype you for their own need. So women are stereotyped as being bossy or bitchy or whatever the case may be, because men want to feel that we cannot be who we are. I think for me personally, I am who I am. Whether it's bitchy or bossy, but I know what I bring to the table and I own it. I don't think, for us as women, we should be labeled in one way or the other. If you want to be weak and soft, and that's your personality, sometimes, when you look at introverts and extroverts, some of the introverts are the ones that are leading versus those who are extroverts. So it's about owning who you are and knowing who you are and how you carry yourself. And I think, when you look at stereotypes are usually put out there to make you stop to a level where people want to control you and make you feel inferior. So I think sometimes, especially in our society, we're in an African society. And I remember growing up, some of my peers were told they couldn't ask questions, they couldn't talk. However, in my home, we were encouraged to ask questions and we were encouraged to challenge certain things, whereas it wasn't normal for some of my other African peers. So it's about learning how to work within your society and knowing what that means. What do you bring into the table? Because you can be bitchy and be bossy and you never go up in the ladder. So really, where do you want to go? And how do you work your way up the ladder? Just like Miata said, it's how you, you said something just now talking about how we as women carry ourselves. And if, you're a strong woman, you can be strong. And there are times that you will have to be strong because, just like you said, men will take our kindness for weakness. So you have to show them that you're capable of being just either as they are or better than they are. So I think it's about knowing who you are and where you're working with. In a male-dominated space, you have to make sure that you can dominate them. And I go back to, us as women, the she factor. We are the smarter sex, regardless of how we look at it. We know when to strike and we know when to lean back. When you look at a lioness knows how to protect and she knows how to attack. So we know how to use our packaging that God gave us to survive.
That's very well said. So,
yes.
and that's why they call us complicated or whatever. We're just complex. We're too complex for them to decipher, and they just label us as it's a complicated, hard or whatever.
Yes.
And that's like, that doesn't define who you are. Like, how people perceive you is their own business, not yours. I'm so happy that you also have talked about, who you are, knowing who you are, identifying yourself. So I wanted to know for both of you how long it took for you to come to knowing who you are and also accepting it, and how important it is to operate from an authentic standpoint as a woman.
I think it's an ongoing journey. I think in life you constantly discover different things about yourself. And again, it's all down to circumstances and situations and scenarios and how those make up the different, characters that you build up along the way. So for me, you heard my background in terms of what I did. So English language and sociology. And then I moved on to marketing. And then within marketing, you did a bit of, sales, so there's accounting and all of that goes into the play. And then I moved back, and then I started logistics. And then administration then became a thing. And then after that, I said, oh, great, I have to start a TV show. So I started a TV show. So, like I said, it's all about your environment. So I think that, through all of that, that then creates and makes you become, the person that you are. Get married. Sorry, I always go back to marriage, because I think there are a lot of young ladies here and young men. Getting married, I was very young, like I said, so finished school here in Sierra Leone and then moved to Nigeria. Got married at 24. No mentors around, no adults around, just me and my ex-husband. And I then started discovering myself, discovering different things about myself. So at school, I was looked after because, yes, he came during the war, so he was a naval officer. He's now a commodore in the Navy, Nigerian Navy. He's a naval officer. Came to Sierra Leone, and he looked after me. Yes, I had my grandmother, who was a very good role model, very strong woman. But then, as soon as my exams were done, I moved to Nigeria. So there I was with this gentleman. I was learning about, in marriage, I was learning about sex. I was learning about, how to look after a home. Because then, I didn't necessarily have a male figure in the house because my dad was never there. My grandmother raised me. So then I had to learn, there's such a thing as you have to submit to your husband. You have to make sure his meals are prepared before he comes home. And then I started working. And then in working, there were a lot of women, because I started working in British Airways, a lot of women that were there. And I then realized that I was probably too timid because they were Nigerian women. These women were strong, and they had husbands, but they ran their homes, and they had very strong personalities. And I found myself now trying to ease into that. And Sierra Leoneans, we're normally very timid. Yeah. You don't think so? Well, I think that, in the face of being with Nigeria, okay, maybe it's, okay, I won't say that Nigerians are very timid. I think I grew up very sheltered. So I think that was probably the problem. My grandmother yes, I grew up very sheltered. And because of that, and there I was with these strong women who, speaking Yoruba all the time as I was in Lagos, speaking Yoruba all the time, being very sassy and all of that. And me gradually trying to grow into my own, so I was very conflicted. And then I go home and I'm trying to learn about this Yoruba man and his values and all of that. So of course it didn't work. I tried it for a few years. My son was born, and then I moved back when he was 4. That was in 2010. Coming back as well, I came back to a society that I thought was very slow. Very, very slow. And that was a struggle for me as well, because I wanted something done. I wanted it done now. Why can't it be done now? Why are people late? Why don't things happen when they're supposed to happen? And I always was of the opinion that I would not compromise. I would not say, okay, this is the way of life, so I will become that one. So that made me strong. That made me realize that, okay, no, actually, people do it differently elsewhere, so it can be done here. So all those that worked with me and worked around me got to understand that. So that also became something else. I was gradually growing into that, getting more self-aware in that aspect. And then I started running a company. So yes, I've worked for a few blue chip companies and all of that. But then now I was working, with a startup. Never worked for a startup before. It's different. It's challenging. That also molded me and created a different Miata. So there I became more stronger, more bold, and more vocal. And then there were hard times. So there was Ebola. So we all went through Ebola. Ebola was, it was a challenge in its own, trying to learn the logistics business and different aspects of it that I didn't necessarily do in the whole CNF process. And that also, was a different set of awareness. And then things got hard. The business took a dive, so that also made me realize that I was actually more resilient than I thought I was. Because here I am, still standing and still trying to make it work. And at the same time, still being innovative. So coming up with different ideas. And I realized, I can do this. So now I've gone into real estate. I can do it, it's working. Do you understand? So I think based on the circumstances, it molds you and you gradually become aware of the kind of person that you can be. And like I said, it is a work in progress and it's something that you just grow and you learn every day.
So I can say that what revealed you to yourself was the exposure you had, the opportunities and also
the challenges.
And the challenges, which is I think the best way of learning, because most of the time we shy away from those challenges and just think that it's something that is not something to embrace. But I'm really glad that the way you featured it is something that was so helpful for you and that revealed you to yourself.
And it hasn't been easy. I mean, I have failed, but with each failure, I get up again and I try and make it work. So, and I think that's just the whole.
Very good.
So I think my journey was a little bit different. As I mentioned, I was born and raised in the West, in the United States. And for even as a child, I was very curious. I was always wanted to know more, wanted to know why, so I asked a lot of why questions. I started working very early. My first job was at like 12. I was a babysitter. Then at 14, I started interning. So I think for me, at an early age, I had role models. In school, in our education system in America, you're asked in kindergarten, what do you want to be when you grow up? You begin to think about who you are, what you want to be, what you like. We're taught to use our imagination. We're pushed to be creative. We're used to go out there and dream and be whatever you want to be, which is, I think, our military slogan. So at an early age, I grew up being nurtured and being taught those things. So I always had an idea, the things that I was interested, I was interested in a lot of different things growing up and even still am now. So for me, having mentors at an early age, having the opportunity to go out and intern and work and just seeing what's out there and being able to take advantage of some of those opportunities. I know here it's a little bit different, but volunteering is everywhere. So volunteering can be for free. Like I feel like sometimes as Sierra Leoneans, we find excuses because we don't want to do what we need to do. So for me, I volunteered for a long time when I was young. I remember we were out there as teenagers advocating and trying to get summer jobs for young people. So because of the way our society was, we knew that we had opportunities and we had advantages, and we just had to act, so we had to fight for it. Even, when I'm, growing up, so I loved reading and I loved learning about African history, African American history. So I learned about the Harriet Tubmans, the Maya Angelos. I learned about the Black Power movement really early in school. So for me, that curiosity was always there, and I wanted to know more. So just growing up, I think, some of that also helped me mold myself as to who I am as a woman, because I was reading books by Black female authors. I was in a society where you saw Black women being powerful in their space, even though there was racism, but you saw that they were able to break certain barriers to reach certain goals and to accomplish certain things. When you look at the Renaissance movement, you look at the Civil Rights movement and the women's movement, we're celebrating Women's History Month and Women's Day, and all of that stemmed from the power of the woman, the power of women wanting to have more rights, voting rights, having opportunities to be better than what they were given. So for me, I grew up in a space where I knew about this history. When I heard about, where I made sure that I went out and learned about what was going on. So I had role models early in age, and when I went to college, I was very involved, just like those who are here who know me, I'm very involved in a lot of things. So from an early age, I was in organizations, and I think that also helps you as young people. If you're looking to developing yourself, get out there and volunteer and be involved. You will fail. There's no person that has not failed. The most successful people, they failed many times. Miata and I worked with someone that he failed so many times. I'm like, how is he still standing? Like, what makes somebody go down that much and you continue to get up? But that is life, and you learn from your failures and use those as experiences to be better. So going into college, I use college as well as a learning experience. I know we have a lot of college students here today. Last week I was at FBC, and I mentioned the same thing. Don't use college just to go to class and get out and get good grades. Use it as a life learning experience. Get involved in organizations. Find networks that you can help figure out who you are if you don't know. Use that opportunity to say, okay, I want to be involved. I think this may be interested. Try it for 1 year, 1 month, whatever the case may be. If it's not right, move on to the next thing. But don't go through college and not experience life, because I feel like college is the stepping stone of life. If I didn't go through some of the experiences that I went through in college, and I didn't meet some of the people that I met, I wouldn't have moved back to Sierra Leone. I just, knew that there was more out here in the world, and I wanted to find out. Even now, I'm always thinking about what's next, what else is out there. Even like Miata said, we both have that same mentality, and it's all about knowing your values and not compromising on those values. Sierra Leone is very slow for some of us. However, you have to make sure that you work parallel. If this is going slow, how can I bring you up to the pace that I need you to be so that we can move together? Because sometimes if we say we're just going to move, we're going to leave a lot of people behind. So we need to figure out how can we do this together and not forget to bring other people along with us. So for me, I had a lot of experiences through life, and I definitely believe that life is long learning. Education is lifelong. So I'm learning everything new about myself. I just had a milestone birthday, and, reflecting on that birthday, I was like, wow, there's still so much that I haven't learned, and so much that I've learned within this past 10 years that I've been here about who I am, having to go back, So when I came to Sierra Leone, adventurous. I'm very adventurous. So I came, my family and everyone is still in the US, and I was really here with just my cousins and my aunts. So I had to navigate Sierra Leone on my own. I had to make new friends. I had to find a new community, and I had to build myself and establish myself. So when I think about that, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, where I was and who I am now, it's about not being afraid to take risks, and not being afraid to fail, because failure is only a learning experience. There's always an opportunity for you to get back up and start again. So.
Thank you so much for this. You need to tap on the shoulder. That's really, I know it's a lifelong process of learning and unlearning. which is super great. And I do think this was early exposure and always having hands-on on things that helped you have this type of personality that I really admire as like women business. And like standing for women's business is blending their products and it's like, it's super cool and nice. And we are wishing you all the best.
Thank you.
And both of you have mentioned failures. You know, looking at you sitting here, I'm just like, they just talking, they have never failed. You know, it was so rosy, they got it so, everything was like, you know, you were sheltered, and she was also born and raised in the States, come on. You know, so everything was so rosy. Did you ever have failures in your lives, personal lives, and you know, professional ones? And how did you deal with it? If ever you guys,
I think one, let's be honest, everyone has failed. Anybody that tells you that they haven't failed, they're not being honest with themselves and they're not being honest with you. So of course, we've both had failures. We've had failures together. But like I said, failure is only a stepping stone for me. I learned early in age that, you know, you're going to fall down a lot. You know, think about, you know, those who are successful. Everyone knows about the Bill Gates, the Steve Jobs, they all failed. Obama, they all failed. So it's like, who am I not to fail? It's about how you use your failure experience and grow from it. So you can use it as a learning experience. You can use it as a way to be better and move on. And just because, you know, quote unquote, you're privileged or whatever the case may be, doesn't mean that you're better than anybody else. It's how you take advantage. You know, there's some people who are born with silver spoons and make nothing out of it. So some people are born with a whole bunch of money and they waste it and they're back to where their parents started. So it's about your experience and how you own into that and how you build from it.
And one other thing I'd like to add, that's, you know, also, most of the things I'd say will obviously come from a personal standpoint, is the fact that you need to believe in something. That's what I think is very important. And so whether it's a deity, whether it's, you know, I don't know, anything, but you need to actually have that belief in something. So I'm Catholic, I believe in God. And going through, you know, my difficulties and my failures and my challenges, I've always had, you know, the comfort in knowing that, yes, there is God. And I know that for every challenge and every trial, when I turn to the Bible, there's a verse there, there's something that speaks to me. And if I take that away, you know, it gives me such calm. I've also discovered yoga. And growing up in my household, I grew up in a very artistic family. So my aunt is an artist, my dad's an artist, they're very adventurous, they were into yoga. My dad, you know, loved the bag of Vegeta, so did my aunt. So they practice yoga from a very spiritual standpoint. But for me, I practice yoga from meditation, but not necessarily as in a worship, but it calms me. So it takes me to a different place. I got high blood pressure, yes, because I was married and into a bad marriage, so I got high blood pressure from that. So for me as well, I know that health-wise, I work out, because I know that exercise also, I know what it does for me and how I feel after, you know, I've had a good workout session. And I do yoga. I try to do yoga twice a week. So whether it's, if you love art, if you love painting, whether it's even bird watching, whether it's, I don't know, working with kids, helping kids, whether it's cooking, you know, whatever it is that you feel that gives you that calm and that peace of mind, do it. Because life is challenging and there will always be challenges. I mean, I'm sure you guys have friends there's some friends that you call and they have a problem every single time you speak to them, you know, and that also can be draining because when they also call you and they talk to you, you're also a source of comfort to them. So you also need to find that strength because there are times as well that you can't even handle your own business, let alone listen to someone else's, you know, but it's very important that, you know, throughout that, whatever challenge you're going through, you need to just, you know, try and believe in something. You also know that there's a high, you know, rate of suicide, especially mental health and depression. You know, so I mean, personally, I would say there was a period that I was really, really depressed, and I think that's when, you know, I realized that okay, I need to just look internally, and then, you know, like she just did physically, pat yourself on the back. You know, so look at, you know, apart from looking at your challenges and your failures, look at what you've done well. So Adjara had, this period of reflection just before her milestone. And I'm sure that period of reflection, you were looking at all what you've achieved and how far you've come. Because when you sit down, for me, New Year's depresses me. Birthdays depress me. Anything that looks as though, it's a milestone, I get depressed. So it's actually a mental effort for me to sit down, evaluate, and say, okay, I haven't done so badly, actually. Yes.
Yeah, and I think, like Miata was saying, it's good to check in with yourself. Check in, one of the things that I've been practicing for a long time is, my vision for the year, for now I'm doing it for the decade since we just started 20, a new decade. But going back and writing down what you want to accomplish. And going back to your checklist every now and then and saying, okay, I've accomplished this, or this has gone down, prioritizing it and saying, okay, I need to do this, I need to do better. But like Miata mentioned as well, make sure that you're not pushing yourself so much that your mental state is not, is not safe, because you have to take care of yourself mentally, spiritually, and even health-wise as well. Sometimes people get into a habit when you're doing things, overeating or not eating, and you don't realize that it's because you're dealing with something personally within. Some people may think, okay, she's just being greedy or whatever the case may be, but that all tells about what's going on within your body. So that's why it's very important for you to be in tune with who you are. And when something goes off, I always know when I get into one of these quiet modes that there's something that's happening and I need to check in with myself. So you have to check in, like she meditates, she does yoga. What is going on and why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel like, okay, the world is closing in on me? So I go into my corner, and for some of us that are Christians, it's important to have that relationship with God, whatever your relationship is, whatever you like to go to church, you just want to pray or worship Him on your own, have your own personal relationship with God and have someone. It's important to have friends, that you can go to. I don't think there's no one that's an island. So I always say, have that one person that you can trust, you can cry to, you can talk to, and that it's a safe space. And if you don't have that, there are people out there that you can go out to and talk to. So I think that's also important when you're talking about well-being, when you talk about mental status, and when you're talking about failures and success. Because in our society, we're often taught that if you fail, that's the end of all and be all, which it isn't. So it's also important to show what your strengths are, what you've accomplished, and how you can be better at whatever else you want to accomplish.
Thank you so much. It's so interesting. This talk is so interesting, and talking about being spiritual, having the being that you believe in, and they have your back. However difficult things are, at least you go back to God, and you ease yourself, and at least that relationship is a privileged one that will never fail. So hearing both of you talking, I'm thinking of that girl child, and knowing that we all would like her to grow and be these strong women that you are. So what should we do to empower that girl, for her to be ready for those hardships and to be able to break the challenges that life will throw at her?
So I think I mentioned it in my bio. One of my passions and one of my lifelong purposes is working with young people, especially girls. For the longest, and my age is teenagers. I love working with teens. I love children. However, I'm very passionate about the teens, because I feel like during your teenage years is when you begin to develop who you are, when you're dealing with self-esteem, when you try to figure out what do you want to be in life, when you're trying to figure out who friends are, what it means to have friends. And those stages is where you really begin to identify who you are and where you want to go. So I've been a mentor for years, and I continue mentoring. And I mentioned when I was in college, I joined many organizations. I joined a sorority in college, and at that time when I joined the sorority, I didn't realize it wasn't about me as Adjara anymore. It was about me, Adjara, and whatever my sorority was. So I had to make sure that I carried myself with that respect and that level of respect, so that anybody who saw me knew that, okay, this is who I am and I'm respected. And also growing up in my family, you know, so I was raised by my mom, she's Sierra Leonean, and my stepdad, he's Nigerian. And respect, every day we hear the word respect. You know, it never fails that you come home, you have to respect yourself because nobody else will respect you if you don't respect yourself. And your name, your integrity, and what that means to you as an individual. If you dent that, that's done. So we were raised with that upbringing, and I make sure that I carry that along with me in my everyday walk of life. So even those that I don't mentor, even those that I don't necessarily talk to, when they see me walking or when they hear about me, when they know about me, they realize, okay, this is a woman of substance. This is someone that I want to be better than or be like. And, you know, I always challenge young girls, be better than who I am. You know, there's so much more out there than to say I want to be like this person. We want to see who's better than the old person, who's better than the, you know, the most powerful woman that we look up to, because the opportunity is endless and we shouldn't limit ourselves. So I think for me, I continue mentoring young people, and even with my work as Women Mean Business, there are lots of young women that I mentor and young men as well. So, but I definitely know the value and understand the value. So in my life, I have community service component as well. I do some work in Mount 91 with young girls in the community there, do some work in Freetown. So mentoring is part of who I am, and it is something that I continue to do and will continue to do because I know the value that mentoring brought to me, and I think it's only good to play it forward as well.
Thank you so much. I would like us to take a break. So back to you, Regina, for a short break. Thank you.
Thank you for the lovely introduction. I'm Yasmin. I'm the owner of Ori. So Ori is over there. So Ori, it's a social business, and we produce shea butter products. We make 3 products: body, hair, and insect repellent. So part of the social aspects is that 5% goes to adolescent girls. So that's the girl club that I direct. It's called Girl at Bank of Sierra Leone. And also part of the scheme is that we hire girls from the HIV program. So Reginald over there is one of our beneficiaries. So now she works for the So please support Girl Up by patronizing us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this nice way. Yes, of course, Oli is part of us, is our own. So we cannot stop talking about Oli because we won't fit. They're like such a supportive, like Oli, yes, but Yasmin, such a supportive person who they mentioned now. So thank you so much, and also I support you in your fight surviving patriarchy. I think we're all trying to survive. Yes, so back to us here, I would like to know what you think about that girl child, how you can work and equip her for her to be ready for the challenges like
So I've got 4 sisters, and I'm the eldest of all my siblings. And for me, it's all about setting a good example. I've also got a 4-year-old girl. So for me, it's very important that I remain authentic. So they totally understand the fact that being authentic and remaining true to yourself is very important, because I feel that nowadays in the age of social media, there's a lot of very cloaked or masked instances of people. People are not necessarily their true selves, and so that's one thing I try to let my siblings know as well, and try to tell them that I'm the living example. I've made all the necessary well not all, but I made most of the mistakes, and I'm hoping that they learn from those mistakes. Ajara mentioned being in a sorority, and that has also reminded me. I'm also the president of the Azalea sorority. It's a sorority of a college, and I was in Azalea in the 90s. And I see, because quite a lot of the college students come to the house when we have meetings and all that, and you can actually see, because I love observing, so you can actually see, you know how your teachers will tell you, okay, I know those that would go far, but sometimes they're wrong. So it's very interesting to observe and actually see, how these young women are evolving. They recently had an event, and it was very, very rewarding to see or hear, some of them talk and, have, opinions on, what they believed in and all of that. We also, well, Adjara knows about that. We also have a home in Wellington, who we decided that we were going to sponsor school education for 4 of the girls there, which we are doing currently. And we've been doing that for the last 3 to 4 years. When I started Carmel and Butcher as well, it was very important that I empowered women. So all of my interns were women. So, and I hope that, through all of these little nuggets and little things that, I do and we tend to do, that they go a long way, because I feel that, most of the things that I learned as well growing up, they didn't necessarily become useful till later in life, or different instances in life. So I think that, it's very important that the way you mold a child's mind, so my 4-year-old, for instance, has to be careful what she sees, what she hears, the correction, and try and, be that good example for them to emulate. Obviously, no child is the same. Nobody can be like me. They're all their own unique, individuals, and I try to encourage that within them as well. I mean, if you're artistic, be artistic. I have a sister who she couldn't pass her exams, but then we realized that she loved cooking. So we sat down with my aunt and we decided, let's actually encourage her in that, in that area. So there are just so many values that, and you see kids on the road, on the streets as well, and you can't help everyone, but I think, what Adjara is doing and what I'm doing as well is ensuring that in our little space, we just try to